Hello, friends. My name is Michelle Fondin, and I'm the author of my latest book, Chakra Healing for Vibrant Energy, exploring your 7 energy centers with mindfulness, yoga, and Ayurveda. And you can get this book at any location, Barnes & Noble, Amazon. It's in audiobook, Kindle, and paperback. Thanks so much for joining me on this twin flame journey. This is crazy. This entire journey, this entire trajectory of what's going on in 2019 with twin flames and the awakening of twin flames and this twin flame energy is just absolutely incredible. So I know a lot of you are impatiently waiting union with your twin flame, especially if you're a divine feminine. Usually it is the divine feminine that is the maiden in waiting, or it could be man in waiting, either or, if you're embodying more of the divine feminine energy than the divine masculine energy, of course. But this period of waiting can be extremely frustrating, especially if you've been waiting a long time, if it's been years or months. Oftentimes that's the case. And just know that there's just something about this entire journey that oftentimes slips our minds when we're in this period of waiting, when we're in this period of separation and impending union, where the pressure seems to be rising within us. And I know that's the case for me. I know I've stayed in my spiritual space, and I'd say for me, honestly, because I've really worked this hard, and 98% of the time I'm really in that spiritual space of faith, and that spiritual space of trust and knowingness that it is imminent that my divine masculine and I are coming together in union. And I just know this. I know it because I feel it, and I'm an intuitive, I'm an empath, so I really understand how he's feeling inside, what his trajectory is. I intuitively know I am in touch with his higher self, and I really feel union with his higher spiritual self because I am so intuitive. And so not everyone is in that way able to trust their intuition. I'm not saying that you're not intuitive. I'm saying that you have your intuition, you have your inner knowing, but maybe you just don't trust it yet. Maybe you don't trust it fully. You don't trust it completely. And so you may have these periods of doubt that are beginning to go on the rise, and these periods of impatience that are rising, and you're hearing and seeing things on YouTube, on the internet, that twin flame couples are coming together. And so you might be wondering, like, when is my time? When is this happening? When is my time? I want it to be my time, right? And so because you're seeing and hearing a lot of twin flame unions, and you're worried that it might not be you, you might be putting undue pressure on your divine masculine. And so maybe impatiently sending texts or making phone calls or going to see them or stalking them on social media or something like that, putting this undue pressure on the divine masculine to hurry it up. Come on. It's time now. It's time for us to be in union. Come on. Everybody else is doing it. We got to do it too. And that's a really common misconception of what this journey is about and what is actually happening in this journey. And let me just take you back. I'm going to take you back on a bit of my journey without giving too much detail. I've told you guys in past videos, because of my current situation, because of the situation of my twin flame and where I'm at and where we are at in our journey, that there's not too many details that I can actually share with you. And there's a very good and valid reason for that. And it has nothing to do with anything bad. It's nothing bad. It's just to protect his privacy, to protect my privacy, and the privacy of the story, I guess. And when we are coming to union, and it's going to be very soon for us, and I just know that for a fact. I've seen the signs, I've heard the signs, I know the signs, I do see him on a regular basis, so I do know where he's at in his journey, and not to mention that I do have that conversation with his higher spiritual self, and so in the 5th dimension, I understand the messages that are coming through for both of us, and so I know that our union is very, 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 very imminent. We're talking about like this week to next week, like it's super duper imminent. So I know that it's coming, and I know that we're coming into union and we're coming together, and one once this is happening together and we've worked through the stuff that we do need to work through together, and when he's open, ready, and willing to be able to share our story, and maybe not himself, but if he's ready for me to share our part of that story and the journey, then I'll be able to share. But until then, until I have his full consent to share, I will not share our story. So, but I'd like to take you back in time to the point at which he and I did meet. And the point in time, if we're talking about divine timing, and that's really what we're talking about in this video. We're talking about how the twin flame union, or anything in your life really, but especially this right now, because that is what's on your mind right now. Otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video if that wasn't what was on your mind right now. It's divine timing. It's not your timing. It's not my timing. It's not our divine masculine's timing. It's God's timing. And really, that is the beauty of what we are learning in this journey, is to surrender to God, to surrender to God's will and God's timing. So in order for me to explain this fully, I'm going to take you back to the beginning of my journey with my twin flame in order for you to fully grasp and understand why divine timing is perfect. So when I met my twin flame, I was still kind of in a long-term relationship that I had been in for several years. So it was like nearly 6 years. And we were separated by distance, and we were separated by kind of verbal separation. In other words, we had made the decision that, like, if I needed to go out there and date, that it was okay, that we understood that it was a long distance relationship at that point. There were a lot of points at which we could not come together as a couple. There were a lot of things that he needed to work through. There were some things that I needed to work through. And while it was not the conscious choice of both of us to be apart, meaning like we still have a lot of love and affection for each other, we decided that it was best if we were together, that's great. But if I found someone and I wanted to date someone, that was fine. So it wasn't a clear rupture, but there was this understanding. Now, I was going through a lot of personal stuff, and I was going through a lot of emotional stuff. And I had been in a series, if you will, over the course of the past 20 years. I've been in a series of really codependent relationships, including my past relationship. And so when I met my twin flame, and it was like magical and wonderful and beautiful and amazing and intense and bright and sunny and absolutely fantastic, like fireworks everywhere on every page and every single like interaction with him. And he knew this too. And it was so intense, in fact. And this is most of your story. So I can tell this bit of the story because this is most of your stories. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. So it was so intense, in fact, that our togetherness or our union together was very short-lived. It was really short-lived because of his circumstances in life and my circumstances in life and our circumstances together in life. So that is the reason why it was such a short duration. But the intensity was there. The attraction was there. The emotions were there. Everything was present in there, and the activation of the heart chakra was totally there. It was 100% there. Now, one of the reasons why it was so short-lived in the beginning was because I was carrying a lot of emotional baggage from my previous relationships, this codependency in relationships. And I seriously, because of my upbringing, I did not understand how to be in a relationship that was not codependent. I had no idea how to even manage a relationship that was codependent. Now, he was coming out of a relationship as well. And he had feelings of, I'm sure, like heartbreak and rejection and all of that. You come out of a relationship, there's going to be some scars there. So he was not ready to enter into a relationship. And he even made it clear to me, like, I'm not looking for a relationship. That's definitely not what I'm looking for. So we were both coming together in this intense, fiery, amazing, loving, attractive energy together, but we both were not ready for it. We both even though I thought I was ready for it, I really wasn't ready for it. Because you can't be in a healthy, unconditionally loving relationship if you've not been through the understanding of what unconditional love is. So for our personal journey, and I know what he has gone through too, but I don't know fully because there's a lot of things that I don't know about his personal journey in these past several months that we've been apart. But I've seen the changes in him, and even talking with him, like I've seen those changes in him. So I know that he has had growth and development on the spiritual plane and on the emotional plane, and just understanding his own emotions, understanding his own spiritual development, and you can just tell, like I can tell because I'm very sensitive to his energy. I'm very sensitive to hearing and feeling and seeing it, like how he acts and reacts in given situations. And then for me personally, it was learning to overcome this idea of codependency that I had never been able to overcome because I didn't know anything else. If you don't know anything else, it's very difficult to overcome it. And so through my experience of loving him from afar, and extending grace, extending forgiveness, extending this unconditional love, even not in his presence, being able to love him fully for who he is and the journey that he's going through, and loving myself fully for the journey that I am going through, I have been able to overcome this idea of codependency in relationships in order to turn it around to love my divine masculine fully in unconditional love. Now, had that separation not happened, had I not been in separation with my divine masculine for so long, I would have never had the opportunity to develop that strength, that spiritual strength within myself. And I'm sure that he would not have been able to develop that spiritual strength within himself in order for us to come together now in union, for us to now be ready, for both of us to be ready to come together in union. Now, if we hadn't respected divine timing, what would have happened was we would have been together, but we would have literally destroyed each other because the energy of the twin flame connection is so incredibly strong. This magnifies the energy of both of you in the good and in the bad. So whatever is good is magnified, and whatever is shadow energy is also magnified. So because we both were not ready, we would have magnified even more each other's shadow energies, and we would have created a lot of destruction with each other, and we wouldn't have had the personal growth that we have had in separation from each other if we had come together too early. Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle, guys. So do you get it now? Do you get that all the spiritual growth that you needed to go through in separation had to happen in that separation, and that God knows when you're ready? God knows when divine timing is right and perfect and according to his plan. Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle. The other piece of the puzzle is something that most of you who are watching these videos are forgetting. Okay, so in this, and I have momentary lapses too, even though I'm a spiritual teacher, even though I meditate, even though I'm highly in tune with my divine masculine twin flame, and I know him, and I know his heart, and I know his soul, and I understand the connection, and I feel the connection, and I know the connection, and I trust in God. I too forget that the second piece of this puzzle here is it's God's will for us to be together. It's God's will for us to be together. Now, one of the things that you guys are experiencing is what I call spiritual egotism. And the spiritual egotism is you thinking or falsely believing, because it's a false belief, right? You falsely believing that you have to do stuff, you have to line up stuff and do stuff and be good in order to earn your twin flame. So you have to do some spiritual cleansing, and you have to be good and do your work and line up all your ducks in a row and you have to try really hard and be a good girl or a good boy. And like, you have to line everything up. And so once you have all your ducks lined up in the row, then you can be good enough to attract your twin flame to you. And honestly, yes, there is spiritual growth, and yes, there is emotional growth and growth of self-respect and self-love, but it's not you. It's not you that is doing this. It is God that is doing this. And it is in God's divine plan to bring you and your twin flame together. Otherwise, you wouldn't have a twin flame. Okay? So it's really important that you remember to get out of spiritual egotism, thinking that there's something that I must do, and if we're not together, it's because of something that I'm not doing in order to bring us together. It's in God's perfect timing. It's in God's plan that you guys be together. It's in God's divine interest, in the greater plan of things, that you guys come together. And so when it's God's will, when it's God's plan, when it's God's timing, you will come together with your twin flame. So there's nothing that you can possibly do or not do that would prevent you from being together in divine union with your twin flame, if that's God's divine destiny. So do you guys get that? Like, I think that's a big piece that all of us are forgetting at times. We're all forgetting that it's not what's in the cards. It's not what's in the timing. It's not what, like, oh, I didn't do all of my homework. I didn't clear out all my past relationships. So until I do that, I can't be with my twin flame. Or my twin flame better get on it now because, you know, time is ticking. The watch is ticking. He's got to break up with his other girlfriend and like come back with me, or whatever the case may be. It's not that. So that's the second piece of the puzzle, is that it's in God's will. It's God's will. And a really good mantra is, thy will be done. And honestly, I started my journal. So I've started journals to my twin flame, and I've recommended in other videos that you guys too, it's a great exercise to start journals to your twin flame, is just to write to your twin flame every day. Maybe just daily, like stuff like what you're doing, or a love letter, or a poem, or a song, or something that you can outpour your love and affection to your twin flame while you're in separation. You want to do this when you're together too, but especially while you're in separation, like, it's really important that you have that connection and that outlet to be able to communicate with them. And just know that when you are loving and kind and forgiving and you're giving grace, that your twin flame is going to receive that, because you're so connected. Your twin flame is going to receive that love, even in the form of a letter, even in the form of a journal that you're keeping, a diary that you're keeping to your twin flame and your twin flame's higher self and your twin flame's guardian angels. That your twin flame, on some level, your twin flame is going to receive that. So I've been having this practice. Gosh, I started in December, I think. So I didn't really, as you know in some of my videos, is that I always knew about soulmate relationships. I always knew about spiritual connected relationships. I didn't really know the term twin flame fully and exactly what it meant till probably early December, late November, early December of 2018. And so I didn't really fully understand what it was. So upon doing research and reading, but also intuitive messages. So a lot of the messages that I get and give to you guys, and like, I just came off a really long day at work, and this video has been in my consciousness for like 2 to 3 days, and perhaps longer, but more potently in the last 2 to 3 days, that my angels and guides were urging me to like get off work, get home, get in front of the camera and post this video. So like they send me these intuitive messages for a reason, because they understand that those of you that are going to view this video need it. And it's probably that I need it too, honestly. I mean, a lot of times it's because I need to hear it. But as these messages are intuitively coming through to me, I share the information with you. So as I was learning about twin flames, much of it was coming through my own experience, and also the intuitive messages that were coming through in my experience, giving it to you guys. So around, I want to say around the 1st of December, or the 5th of December, it was around that timing where I really understood that my twin flame was my twin flame. Like, I knew it. I knew it like beyond the shadow of a doubt. Like, there were so many signs leading up to it for a few months. There were so many incredible signs leading up to it. And then around that time in early December, I knew it. Like, I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense now. And I began writing journals to my twin flame. It's really romantic. So I began just writing him letters, daily letters, poems, prose, songs, like thoughts, intuitive messages. So I began writing to him. But in one of the journals, I actually just wrote, because I was kind of frustrated with God, because I was like, what is happening here? Like, you're sending me someone, then you're sending him away, then you're saying I'm supposed to be with him, and I'm not with him, and what's going on? But I just wrote at the top of the journal, like, thy will be done. And that was my mantra, and that's been my mantra. It's like, because I really didn't believe in the beginning that my twin flame was for me, and like when I got the intuitive message that we were going to be together and we were going to be married together, it was early. It was really, really, really early in the journey. Like, we had barely met, and I didn't even think that I would be attracted to him. Like, I was like, okay, he's not my type. Like, I'm not attracted to him. But there was an attraction. It was a pull toward him. And so I went into my meditation. I spoke to my angels and I said, what is this? Like, what is this? Why? What is this? And remember, I was still in another relationship, or kind of like easing myself out of that relationship. So it was very confusing for me. And I was thinking to myself, this is something. I don't know what it is, but it is definitely something. What is this? And immediately, guys, I got like, and there's no cards in the decks that I was looking at for twin flame, but it was like soulmate, marriage, dreams come true. Like, it was all the cards like pointing to, this is the person you're going to marry. And I was like, what? You have got to be kidding me. You have absolutely got, this is not the person I'm supposed to marry. But the more messages I kept getting, it was like a flood of messages. Like, no, this is the person you're going to marry. This is the person you're supposed to be with. This is the person you're going to marry. This is him. This is the person. And so it came to a point shortly thereafter. And this is before, I mean, we had not gone on a date. We had not been together. Like, there was nothing. Like, nothing. No basis for any of this knowledge whatsoever. And I was very resistant to it in the beginning. I was super duper resistant, because I was like, I don't think so. Like, you guys are making a mistake. I don't think so. And so when I surrendered to it, when I really surrendered to it, my first surrender to God was, God, you know best. You know best. Like, see, I'm like getting teary-eyed now, because I'm I'm thinking of like the amazing power of God. Like, he's so incredibly amazing. He is like perfect in every way. And he knows your heart. He knows your soul. He knows your destiny. And when I think about how perfect God is and how perfect his plan is for you, and yeah, you're seeing real emotion here, guys. And he's so incredibly perfect. And when I was in the darkness and I did not see, I looked at him and I didn't see how incredibly perfect he is for me. And I didn't know him. Like, I didn't know him. I barely met him. I did not know him. And I had those doubts of like, God, I don't think you're making a mistake here, God. And God makes no mistakes. God makes no mistakes in the person you're supposed to be with. God makes no mistakes in the timing. God makes no mistakes in the trajectory of your life. God makes no mistakes. It's your job to obey him. So the tears are coming because when I surrendered to God and I wrote down on that journal, God, I don't know what's happening here, but thy will be done. Like, thy will be done. If this is the man for me, if this is the man of my heart, if this is the man I'm supposed to be with, then thy will be done, not my will. Thy will be done. From that point on, from that point of surrender, when I surrendered to God and I said, God, thy will be done, things started to unfold, and they started to unfold rather quickly. And that's when we had our brief union. That's when we had our separation. But throughout this separation time, and as I mentioned, there have been periods where we have had conversations together, he and I. And you've got to keep in mind, because our union was so brief, there's so much I didn't know about him. Like, I didn't know him at all, you guys. Like, I did not know him. But throughout this separation time, where we've had brief conversations together, God keeps like unfolding through these conversations with him. God keeps unfolding, like showing me the pages, showing me his life, showing me his personality, showing me his values. And as God's unfolding these with each conversation we've had over the past 6 months or so, I'm like, God, you're right. Like, you are right. How perfect he is for me in every possible way, in every possible aspect of who he is. He is 100% perfect for me. Like, there could be no other man on this planet who is more perfect for me than him. And that's why the tears came. The tears came because it took my leap of faith first. It took my trusting God first. It took my surrender to God first to say, I don't know what's best for me. You know what's best for me. I trust your will. Thy will be done. And it was at that point that God began to show me. He began to show me who my divine masculine was, who he was as a man, or who he is as a man, I should say, rather. He still is. Who he is as far as his values go, who he is as a leader and a person and a friend. And like, he started showing me all of these things. And I've been blown away. Like, I have been blown away for the past 6 months or so. I've been blown away by what God has shown me in saying, like, I've made him for you. I have made this man for you, and he is perfect for you. And so it took my level of surrender to God in order to get that. So if I hadn't put my faith and trust in God in everything, then I would have closed the door to what is perfect for me. And that would have been on me. So that's the second piece in the puzzle, is like that total surrender, trusting God and God's perfect and divine timing and everything. And the third, and this is so important, you guys, and I hope you grasp this and get this. And I know a lot of you are struggling on your spiritual path. I know that a lot of you don't have the strong faith and trust in God that I have had, that I've not only been brought up with, but that I've had along, because God has blessed me with that. It has very little, if nothing, to do with my upbringing. It's something I've always had. And I talk about this in my prior videos on spiritual development and your spiritual awakening. And if you haven't viewed those videos back yet, like, go back and see those. Like, view those and listen to those, because it's really important to like understand the spiritual journey and in my spiritual journey, in order to understand where I'm at, where I'm coming from, and where I'm taking you guys, because I want you guys to get out of that spiritual egotism, because then you're back into believing that you're the center of the universe. And if you believe that you're the center of the universe, then you believe that you need to make this union happen in some way, shape, or form, that you either need to make it happen or there's something that you're doing to not make it happen. And what I'm trying to transmit to you in this message is that there is nothing you can do to not make it happen. Like, it's God's will, it's God's love, it's God's purpose, it's God's divine timing for you to make this happen. So the third piece of the puzzle is, because you're the divine feminine, if you're watching this and you are the divine feminine, you are the divine feminine. The job of the divine masculine, and here's the job, and he cannot do this until he's ready, and your union will not come until he's ready, because of the divine, unconditionally loving nature of this couplehood, if you will. Okay, I'm ready. Your divine masculine's job is to surrender first to God in God's will for him before he can come to you. All right, let me say this again. Because the union is so spiritually based, and like I've explained in other videos that it's like, instead of being from the bottom up to ascension, like most unions that are earth-based come together from the earthly plane, and as they build in the relationship, and I've talked about this in other videos, so view all of my videos on twin flame unions in order to fully grasp this. So most unions are going to come from the bottom up. Okay, there are moments of spirituality, right? Making love for the first time with your beloved and like having that loving spiritual connection is a momentary glimpse into the universal consciousness that's bringing you guys together, but it's momentary. Okay, so most relationships are working from the ground up into the spiritual plane. Twin flames start at the spiritual plane in the unknown or unseen, right? Because you're not totally aware, and then you become awakened, but it's happening up here in the spiritual plane. And then it's coming down to earth to be able to learn how to live together on this earthly plane in life. Got it? So, for example, for you and your twin flame, if you've had very little contact, you have this extreme love for each other, this spiritual connection, this interconnectedness, this intense energy, this telepathy, this like back and forth on a spiritual plane. But when you come together, you're going to have this intense love for each other and this unconditional love and this spiritual connection. But then you're going to have to learn to do stuff together. Like you're going to have to learn like who's going to make the bed in the morning. So it's a really weird thing. It's going to be a weird thing to like connect with your twin flame in union if there's been very little contact with each other, because you're going to feel this deep, intense love for each other and this unconditional connection with each other. But then you're going to have to learn how to do things on this earthly plane. And it's going to be a little weird, but the connection will still be there. So you guys are going to be, that's the glue that's holding you guys together, which is a lot more solid than making an earthly connection first and then having to work your way up to the spiritual connection. So your divine masculine is going to have to come to the spiritual awakening and realization that he must surrender, or he or she, right? Divine masculine can be embodied in a feminine body or in a masculine body. Typically it's in a masculine body, but it can be in a feminine body. They're going to have to come to the realization to surrender completely to God and God's will first. Here's why. The role of the divine masculine is to be the leader, if you will, the leader in spirituality for the couple. That's it. So in order for the divine masculine to be the leader in spiritual connection and spirituality in the couple, to be kind of like the spiritual power, because the power comes from the masculine energy, the power, the drive, the force that's moving forward, right? And so it's the divine masculine's job to surrender to God's will. Like, I am surrendering now to God's will for me and my life. And my job is to take God's will, transform it into unconditional love, an unconditional commitment to my divine feminine so that she can be nurtured and loved. And I cannot possibly do that until I've surrendered to God's will. So that's the way it works, guys. That's the way it works. So it's even in the Bible. Like, if you don't believe me, go to Ephesians chapter 5. Like, it's even in the Bible. And I know that some of you aren't religious. Some of you were not brought up in church. Some of you were not brought up in biblical scriptures. But we're trying in this generation of couplehood, and I do explain this other, we are experiencing a wild transformation in order to get us back into healthy relationships based on unconditional love. That has been lost. So we are trying to get back there. And so part of God's plan is to get enough people on board in this boat of unconditional love into couplehood to raise the consciousness of the world and to provide a glowing example for others. So that is the purpose. That is the purpose of this union. That is the purpose of why we're coming together so quickly in so many numbers. But if you try to precipitate union with your spiritual egotism, it's not going to work. It's going to crumble. It's not going to work because A, the divine feminine is supposed to sit in her personal power and not be the driver or the driving force in this. That's number one. Number two is if you push God's timing, your divine masculine may not be ready to surrender to God in order to make this union perfect. Okay? If he has not come to the point of surrendering to God's will, and it's his own will, you guys are going to come together and it's going to be a codependent mess. Because now the relationship is going to be feeding his ego, the divine masculine's ego, versus him serving God first, bringing God's will down and giving it to you. Do you understand? So it's kind of like the hierarchy of how this is supposed to go. And if he is not humble enough in himself, he has to like bow down to his own ego, like become humble enough in himself to be able to get down on his knees and surrender to God and say, God, it is your will, not my will. Thy will be done. Thy will be done. Now let me love my divine feminine and let me cherish her and love her. And that is what it's about. That's why you guys can't rush it. Do you understand that? If he is not ready to surrender to God's will and serve you, it's not going to happen. It's going to be a disaster. So that is what you're waiting for. It's not anything you're doing or not doing. It's not anything you've cleansed or not cleansed. It's the fact that when the divine masculine is ready to surrender himself to God, get on his knees and say, thy will be done, and mean it in every step of the way, he cannot be a good servant to you because that's what he has to be. The divine feminine is naturally loving, nurturing, giving, empathetic, amazing at loving. The divine feminine is amazing at loving. It's inborn. It's natural. It's natural for the divine feminine to love. It's not so natural for the divine masculine to love. It's not so natural. It does not come naturally. So when you see your divine masculine in all of his glory as he has become humbled to the will of God, you will worship him like the man he is, meaning like you will have reverence for him. You will have the ultimate respect for him. You will look at him as a king, as a leader, as someone who is so incredibly powerful, but he's not powerful in earthly power or ego power. He is powerful because he has surrendered to God. And that's the way you're going to look at him and look up to him and be like, you are everything to me. I respect you. I honor you. I love you. And in return, he is just going to love you even more because that is what the divine masculine needs. They need that respect. They need that reverence. And I know it sounds old-fashioned, you guys, but that's the truth. That is the truth of this union. That is the nature of this union. That's the nature of everything that's coming together. And if you guys don't get that, you won't be in union until you get it. Like, that is it. That's the whole nutshell in this. And I've come to that point, and I've told you that in the video on unconditional love. I've told you that in the video on unconditional commitment, that I have pure reverence for my divine masculine. I have pure respect for him. I honor him. I know the place at which he's at. Like, I know with certainty that he has come to that place of getting humble, of really submitting to God's will. And I'm so humbled by that. Like, I'm so humbled by the fact that he's come to that point, and I have so much respect for him. And that's a point that you guys have to get to too. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey. I know this was long-winded, but honestly, things that are spiritual can't be rushed, including explanations of that which is spiritual when you are trying to understand something that this world doesn't understand. Because if you go out into the world, into where we are today, the world doesn't understand this. Absolutely not. So get this, grasp it, hold on to it, let go of that spiritual egotism, and you will be in union before you even know it. Thank you so much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel below and click on the bell for notifications. Share this video with other twin flames, and thank you for pledging your support on Patreon. I'm actually waiting for more patrons to support me on Patreon before starting my podcast. I talked about that in the last video. I'm super duper excited because a lot of you do ask questions, and so I'm actually holding off on my podcast until I have some more patrons on Patreon. So basically, I explained it in the last video. Patrons it's basically like subscribing to my Patreon account, just donating a little bit of money each month to help support this YouTube channel. So it's www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin, and I will see you in the next video.